The year is 1941, and America is on the brink of entering the largest war in human history, with a military that refuses to believe black men can fly combat aircraft. The Army Air Corps has spent decades insisting that African Americans lack the intelligence, courage, and reflexes for aerial combat. But Eleanor Roosevelt isn't convinced. After taking a flight with civilian instructor Charles Chief Anderson at Tuskegee Institute in April 1941, she pressures her husband's administration to act. The result, Public Law 18, passed in January 1941, forces the War Department to create an all-black flying unit, whether they like it or not. They don't. The Army Air Corps deliberately selects Tuskegee, Alabama, the heart of Jim Crow country, precisely because it's remote, rural, and far from public scrutiny. If this program fails, and they expect it to, it'll fail quietly. Tuskegee Army Airfield opens in July 1941 with rejected equipment from other bases. The runways are shorter, the aircraft older, the facilities improvised. Everything about the setup reeks of sabotage, disguised as compliance. When the first aviation cadets arrive, they face instructors told these men will wash out at 3 times the rate of white trainees. Captain Benjamin O. Davis, Jr., a West Point graduate and son of the Army's first black general, steps in to lead. Having already endured 4 silent years at the academy where no white cadet spoke to him outside duty, he's now tasked with proving that black pilots can master the most complex form of warfare yet invented. The training is merciless. White cadets get multiple check ride attempts. Tuskegee cadets get one. White cadets who struggle receive extra instruction. Black cadets who falter are dismissed. The failure rate is engineered to be catastrophic. Yet they refuse to break. On March 7, 1942, 5 men, Davis, George Roberts, M. Ross, Lemuel Custis, and Charles DeBow, earn their wings. The impossible has happened, and the Army has no choice but to continue. By mid-1943, enough have graduated to form the 302nd Fighter Group, the 99th, 100th, 301st, and 302nd Squadrons, each with 16 aircraft, 25 pilots, and 200 ground crew, all black. The Army has built a segregated unit, expecting it to collapse once it faces real combat. Their equipment tells the story. While white units fly the new P-47 Thunderbolts and P-38 Lightnings, the 302nd is issued outdated P-40 Warhawks, slower, less agile, and worn out. It's 1941 technology against Germany's 1943 frontline. The message is clear. Perform token missions, prove the critics right, and fade away as a failed experiment. Colonel Davis commands knowing every sortie will be judged differently. When white pilots lose bombers, it's fog of war. When his men do, it'll be racial proof. The weight is crushing. Every flight carries the hopes of 13 million black Americans denied equality. Each takeoff defies racism. Each landing disproves it. June 1943, the 332nd ships out to North Africa. Combat is imminent, and the nation is waiting for them to fail. The 99th Fighter Squadron enters Sicilian skies on June 2, 1943. Their first mission, escorting bombers to Pantelleria, is uneventful. No enemy contact. No losses. Just nervous rookies learning what flak really looks like. But the calm doesn't last. On June 9th, they encounter German Focke-Wulf 190s over the Mediterranean, and Lieutenant Charles Hall scores their first aerial kill. It should be triumphant, but skeptical white commanders at the Dottiesen Air Support Command dismiss it. The truth, the P-40 is hopelessly outmatched. The FW-190 climbs 500 feet faster per minute. The BF-109G turns tighter at altitude. The P-40 tops out at 360 MEPI, 30 slower than the enemy. You can't chase what's faster, and you can't outrun what can climb over you. Then comes July 6, 1943, the day everything nearly collapses. Over Castelvetrano, Sicily, the 99th is ambushed by a dozen BF-109s diving out of the sun. It's a slaughter. 2 P-40s are shot down. Lieutenant Sherman White is killed. Lieutenant James McCullen bails out and is captured. The rest scatter, each man fighting for his life. When the survivors limp home, accusations start flying. Colonel William Momyer, commander of the 33rd Fighter Group, files a report that it reads like a formal indictment. Colonel Mommy's report accuses the 99th of lacking aggression, flying sloppy formations and showing inferior combat performance compared to white squadrons. His recommendation lands on General Hap Arnold's desk: pull the 99th from combat duty and reassign them to coastal patrol, busy work far from the front lines. The implication is clear: keep them flying but nowhere near real combat. Time magazine runs an article questioning whether the Negro has the right temperament for aerial warfare. Black newspapers fire back with fierce editorials, but the damage is already done. The so-called Tuskegee experiment is being labeled a failure. What Mommyer's report conveniently ignores is that his white units flying the same P-40s are also being cut to pieces. The 57th Fighter Group loses 8 aircraft in July. The 79th loses 6. The truth is the P-40 is obsolete no matter who flies it. But when white pilots die, it's chalked up to bad luck. When black pilots die, it's called racial inferiority. The data is being twisted into a weapon, and the 332nd Fighter Group knows that one more bad mission could erase them completely. Colonel Benjamin O. Davis, Jr. won't let that happen. He personally requests a meeting with General Ira Eaker, commander of the Mediterranean Allied Air Forces. It's September 1943, and Davis enters that room, knowing he isn't just defending his men, he's defending the future of integration in the U.S. military. Armed with mission records, loss reports, and aircraft data, he lays out the numbers: 500 sorties flown, a 3.8% loss rate. White squadrons flying P-40s are losing between 3.5% and 4.2%. Statistically, his men are performing just as well as anyone else flying outdated planes. Eaker doesn't pin new wings on Davis that day, but he doesn't ground the 99th either. Instead, he makes a bold move. He orders the paperwork to bring the entire 332nd Fighter Group to Italy and re-equip them with modern fighters. This isn't a favor. By late 1943, America's strategic bombing campaign is bleeding crews dry. B-17s and B-24s are getting torn apart over Germany, and every fighter group available is needed. The Tuskegee Airmen have proven they can endure. Now they'll get the chance to prove they can dominate. In January 1944, the 332nd arrives at Ramitelli Airfield on Italy's Adriatic coast. Waiting for them are rows of gleaming P-47 Thunderbolts. The old excuse, bad equipment, is gone. Ramitelli is a muddy sprawl of tents and steel matting, but it becomes home. For 2 months, the men fly Thunderbolts, rugged brutes armed with 850 caliber guns and armor thick enough to fly through walls. They love the power, but the 15th Air Force has other plans. By May 1944, the 332nd transitions again, this time to the sleek, deadly P-51 Mustang, and everything changes. The P-51B and C models, rolling onto the flight line, are the most advanced fighters in the world. With their Packard-built Rolls-Royce Merlin engines, they cruise at 360 seamorpers, top out at 440, and can reach Berlin with 900 miles of range on drop tanks. For the first time, the bombers have an escort that can go the distance. The mission also changes. No more fighter sweeps or strafing runs. This is bomber escort duty, the most politically loaded assignment in the war. It puts black pilots directly in charge of protecting white crews. If bombers fall, while the 332nd is guarding them, every racist in the Air Force will have fresh ammunition for decades. Davis knows the stakes and makes it clear: you will stay with the bombers. You will not chase kills. You will bring them home. The new Mustangs arrive in standard olive drab and grey, but Davis issues a bold order: paint the tails bright red. The 99th had used red trim on their P-40s before, but this is different. Fire engine red from rudder to stabilizer, impossible to miss in the sky. Officially, it's for identification. Unofficially, it's a declaration. If the 332nd succeeds or fails, the world will know exactly who they are. On June 7, 1944, the Red Tails fly their first mission to Munich. 68 P-51s of the 332nd join B-17s from the 5th Bombardment Wing. For the first time, white bomber crews see their new escorts. The reaction is mixed. Some trust skill over skin color. Others can't fathom taking protection from black pilots. The 332nd flies in tight, disciplined formation, closer than any P-47 group, and the mission runs perfectly. No bombers lost, no incidents, just quiet professionalism, and within days, a rumor begins to spread among the bomber crews, one that will outlast the war itself. Word is that the Red Tails have never lost a bomber to enemy fighters. It isn't true yet, but the legend is already in motion. The timing helps. By summer 1944, the Luftwaffe is crumbling, bled dry of fuel and pilots. Losses, fuel shortages, and scattered production have gutted the Luftwaffe. The Germans can no longer launch the 300-plane fighter swarms they sent up in 1943. The Red Tails enter the war's deadliest arena, bomber escort, at a moment when interception rates are falling everywhere. Yet the skeptics in command are waiting for them to falter. They pore over loss reports, tally bombers, and expect the 332nd so-called luck to run out. Standard U.S. fighter doctrine insists escorts attack enemy aircraft aggressively, even if that leaves the bombers momentarily exposed. The logic is simple: destroy the enemy before he can strike. Every other fighter group flies this way because that's what the manuals demand. But Colonel Benjamin O. Davis, Jr. is about to throw that doctrine out the window, and his decision will redefine air combat. The policy killing American bomber crews in 1944 comes straight from the top, and it's built on pilot ego, not tactical logic. The Army Air Forces train their fighter pilots to chase air superiority first. Escorting bombers is an afterthought. The manuals even encourage breaking formation to pursue targets of opportunity. Gills mean medals, headlines, and promotions. Sticking with bombers means dull patrols and no glory. By March 1944, the numbers expose the cost. 8th Air Force bombers out of England lose 46 heavy bombers per 1,000 sorties, a 4.6% loss rate. That sounds sustainable until you realize each crew must survive 25 missions to finish a tour. Statistically, only 1 in 3 men make it home. The 15th Air Force in Italy fares little better, losing between 3.8% and 5% per mission, entire squadrons wiped out every few months. The Luftwaffe has learned to exploit America's flawed tactics. German commanders send small bait formations, 4 or 5 Bf-109s, to taunt the escorts. When American fighters peel off to chase them, hidden groups of F-190s swoop in on the now exposed bombers. The trap works flawlessly. On March 6, 1944, 69 bombers are lost over Berlin. 2 days later, another 37 go down. The escorts rack up kill counts, while the bombers they're guarding burn in the sky. Here's the ugly truth no one wants to face. The system rewards failure. Captain Don Gentile of the 4th Fighter Group becomes a national hero with 21.8 confirmed kills. Many scored far from his assigned bomber formation. He's celebrated on magazine covers, while the crews he abandoned rot in prison camps. The incentive structure is backward. Pilots who guard the bombers get no recognition. Those who chase glory become legends. The March 24, 1944, raid on Berlin makes the problem impossible to ignore. Over 700 bombers strike the capital, escorted by 800 fighters. The Luftwaffe throws in 400 interceptors, entire wings of FW-190s and Bf-109s. As usual, small German groups bait the escorts away, and the main force tears through the unprotected bombers. 26 B-17s and B-24s are destroyed. Fighter pilots log impressive kill numbers, but the bombers die by the dozens. After-action reports are damning. Crews describe watching their escorts vanish into the clouds, chasing Germans, only to face swarms of enemy fighters alone. Bull turret gunners report seeing red-nosed FW-190s ripping through bomber formations unopposed. Radio operators send frantic distress calls that go unanswered because the escorts are miles away, locked in dogfights that accomplish nothing. Furious bomber crews file complaints that vanish in bureaucracy because admitting the doctrine has failed means admitting years of leadership mistakes. At Ramitelli, Colonel Davis studies these reports and sees opportunity. His men are under microscopic scrutiny, every mission dissected, every casualty questioned. But that same scrutiny gives him an advantage, no excuses. If the 302nd loses bombers chasing kills, they'll be grounded forever. But if they protect their bombers better than anyone else, even their critics can't deny the results. The very pressure meant to destroy them becomes their weapon. Davis summons his squadron commanders and issues orders that break every rule in the Army Air Force's playbook. His command is absolute: stay with the bombers. No exceptions, no glory hunting, no breaking formation, no chasing stragglers. In late March 1944, those words become the creed of the Red Tails and the start of a revolution in aerial warfare. If a German fighter flashes by, you'd let it go, unless it's directly threatening the bombers. The mission isn't about adding to your kill count. It's about bringing every bomber home alive. For fighter pilots trained to hunt aggressively, it feels like fighting with one hand tied behind their back. Colonel Davis doesn't invent this doctrine out of creativity. It's born from necessity and cold observation. He studied the March 24th Berlin disaster. Read the after-action reports describing bombers left defenseless when their escorts chased glory. And done something most commanders never do. He's talked to bomber crews. Not debriefs, but honest conversations with B-17 and B-24 pilots who explain what they actually need. It isn't high kill numbers. It's someone who stays close when the FW-190s come slashing through the formation, so Davis rewrites the playbook. Standard escort doctrine calls for wide screening formations, flying above, below, and around the bombers. Flexible, but distant. The 322nd tightens that up to what Davis calls close escort. His Mustangs fly within 50 yards of the bombers, so close that gunners can see their faces. When the bombers turn, the red tails turn with them, locked in position as if welded to the formation. When German fighters approach, they intercept only within their sector, never leaving the bombers uncovered. It's precision flying that demands total discipline. Staying that tight to 300-foot wingspans means constant focus. No showing off, no daydreaming. One slip and you're colliding with a bomber or drifting into another squadron's lane. The workload is relentless. Missions last 6 to 8 hours. The P-51 has no autopilot. Your right hand grips the stick for hours, making microscopic adjustments. Your left hand rides the throttle and mixture. Your feet dance on the rudder pedals. Your head never stops scanning the sky. Do this for 7 hours at 25,000 feet in sub-zero temperatures, breathing through an oxygen mask, and you understand why most fighter pilots crave freedom instead of formation. Even fuel management becomes a science. The P-51 carries 269 gallons internally, plus 2 108-gallon drop tanks, good for about 7 hours if handled perfectly. Lean the mixture, burn drop tanks first, jettison at the right time, and never waste fuel in prolonged dogfights. Davis enforces strict fuel discipline. Pilots log consumption every 15 minutes, calculate their minimum return margin, and if combat burns, push them past it. They break off and go home. That's not fear, it's arithmetic. A fighter that ditches in the Adriatic saves no bombers. Radio use follows the same precision. Other groups fill the airwaves with chatter, jokes, and combat calls. The 322nd maintains near total radio silence, only enemy contacts, navigation, or emergencies. It's not just professionalism, it's survival. German signals units monitor Allied frequencies to triangulate bomber positions. Silence makes them invisible. And when someone does call out a contact, everyone hears it clearly, unburied under radio noise. April 1944 becomes the test. The Red Tails escort bombers to Bucharest, Ploesti, Vienna, and Munich. Every major strategic target within range. The Luftwaffe is still dangerous that spring, and interceptions are frequent. On April 12th, during a raid on Steyr's ball-bearing plants, German fighters slash through the formation. The 332nd intercepts every attack, downs 3 Bf-109s, and brings every bomber home. April 15th, Ploesti again, same story. Heavy opposition, no bombers lost. April 24th, April 26th, May 5th. Mission after mission, the results repeat. The red tails aren't chasing kills deep into Germany. They're building something more valuable, trust. By summer, bomber crews start to believe the impossible, that they might actually survive the war. The record that makes history isn't luck. It's built from obsession over details most fighter groups dismiss. Between June 1944 and April 1945, the 332nd Fighter Group flies about 200 escort missions, over 15,500 sorties. They protect roughly 15,000 heavy bombers. The number shot down by enemy fighters while under their direct cover, 0. Not one. That statistical miracle is no miracle at all. It's the product of geometry and discipline. While other groups spread out loosely to chase freedom and kills, the 332nd builds a flying fortress around the bombers, a constantly shifting perimeter. 4 squadrons rotate roles, high cover, low cover, and 2 flank positions. The high squadron flies 2,000 feet above, scanning for diving attacks. The low squadron holds 1,000 feet below, guarding against Germany's deadliest tactic, climbing assaults from beneath. Where the bombers' guns can't reach, the side squadrons fly tight on either flank, close enough to intercept any German fighter attempting a beam attack through the bomber stream. Every 15 minutes the formation rotates. High cover drops to low, low swings right, right shifts left, and left climbs to high. The system serves 2 purposes. It prevents one squadron from bearing the brunt of danger for the entire mission, and it keeps the defense unpredictable. German controllers constantly analyze escort patterns, looking for weak points. The red tail's rotation ensures no weakness lasts long enough to exploit. It's mentally draining, physically punishing, and demands perfect synchronization, but it works. The bomb run is the most perilous phase of any mission. Bombers must hold steady for 30 to 60 seconds while the Norden bomb site calculates the drop point. During that window they can't maneuver, and the Luftwaffe knows it. The 332nd stations 8 fighters alongside the lead bomber, 4 per side, flying so close they could touch wings. It's aerial bodyguard duty, protecting helpless bombers under intense flak while holding formation to the inch. Davis's engagement orders are ruthless in their simplicity. Never break visual contact with the bombers. The Germans soon realize the red tails won't chase, so they adapt. Bf-109s make mock passes, pulling away before gun range, hoping to bait escorts into pursuit. It fails. FW-190s dive from 30,000 feet, building murderous speed to smash through the screen, only to meet the high cover head-on. Heavy Mi-410s launch 210mm rockets from long range, but the escorts stay tight, forcing the Germans to fire too early, wasting their shots. Accuracy plummets. Meanwhile, every red-tail pilot is doing constant math. A standard mission profile begins at Ramatelli with full tanks, 269 gallons internal, 2 108-gallon drop tanks. Climb to 15,000 feet burns 150 gallons. Cruise at 25,000 feet eats about 60 gallons per hour. After 3 hours, drop tanks are empty and jettisoned. Internal fuel remaining, roughly 180 gallons. Combat can drain 100 gallons in 10 minutes. That leaves just 80 gallons to get home, with 400 miles still to fly. There's no margin for error. A miscalculation of 20 gallons means ditching in the Adriatic and praying rescue arrives before. The cold does. Behind every flawless mission is an army of black mechanics at Ramatelli, men told all their lives. They're unfit for technical work. Now maintaining some of the most advanced machinery on Earth, they perform miracles daily. After every flight, each P-51 undergoes a full inspection. Compression test, control rigging check, gun calibration, oxygen system pressure test. Issues are caught before they kill. A report of engine roughness doesn't wait for a maintenance cycle. cowling comes off that night, and the culprit, a fouled plug or loose line, is found and fixed. Failure isn't an option, because mechanical errors over Germany mean dead men and lost bombers. The math is unforgiving. 200 missions averaging 78 sorties equals 5,600 separate chances for something to go wrong. Weather, flak, malfunction, pilot fatigue, enemy fire. The fact that no bomber falls under their escort isn't chance. It's the product of precision, preparation, and an unshakable commitment to mission over ego. The bomber crews notice first. You're on your 15th mission over Austria, flak bursting around you. Bracing for the inevitable swarm of P-51 You glance out your window and see a P-51 with a red tail holding formation just 50 feet off your wingtip. That pilot isn't hunting kills. He's watching you, matching your every move. A guardian angel made of aluminum and nerve. You land back at Foggia or Amendola and mention those red tails to your CO. He passes it to the group commander. Word spreads through the 5th Bombardment Wing, then the 304th, and across the entire 15th Air Force. By summer 1944, the legend has a name, the Red Tail Angels. It's not official terminology. It's folklore born from gratitude, whispered in ready rooms and mess halls. B-17 captains swap stories over whiskey. Waist gunners tell newcomers. Navigators compare notes during mission briefings. The consensus is universal: reliability. Other fighter groups might show up, might not, might vanish mid-fight. The Red Tails always show, always stay, always bring their bombers home. By October 1944, something extraordinary happens. Bomber groups begin requesting the 332nd by name. Mission planners at 15th Air Force Headquarters start penciling in the Red Tails for the hardest runs, the deepest strikes, the most dangerous skies over Germany. The same commanders who once doubted them now quietly admit the truth. When the Red Tails are on your wing, you make it home. It drives some white fighter group commanders absolutely mad. Colonel Hub Zemke of the 479th Fighter Group even files a formal complaint, alleging that bomber crews are showing improper preference for black pilots, implying it reflects poorly on white squadrons. The protest dies in the paperwork pile because 15th Air Force Command looks at the loss statistics and shrugs. If bomber crews feel safer with the 302nd, perhaps other groups should be asking themselves why. The Red Tail's reputation evolves into a psychological weapon working on both sides of the front. German pilots monitoring Allied radio intercepts hear bomber crews praising the Red Tails. Luftwaffe intelligence circulates warnings. These are black pilots who fly impossibly tight formations and never abandon their bombers. Some Germans don't believe it, dismissing it as Allied propaganda. Others learn the truth firsthand when their attack runs end abruptly against Mustangs that refuse to break formation. The red-painted tails become an unmistakable signature. Seeing them means the bombers will be nearly impossible to hit. By early 1945, the statistics are undeniable. The 332nd has flown 179 escort missions without losing a single bomber to enemy fighters. Compare that to their peers. The 31st Fighter Group averages 2.3 bombers lost per 100 missions. The 52nd averages 2.1, and the 325th averages 1.9. These are veteran, capable units flying the same P-51s, but their records can't match the Red Tails. The only real difference is doctrine, and the proof lives in every morning's loss report. Then comes March 24, 1945, the mission that seals the legend. The target, Daimler-Benz tank, works in Berlin, 600 miles from Ramatelli, maximum range for a Mustang, defended by the remnants of the Luftwaffe. The 332nd launches 59 fighters to escort B-17s from the 5th Bombardment Wing. Near the target, 25 Messerschmitt Me-262 jets, the world's first operational jet fighters, attack. The Me-262 is 100 miles per hour, faster than a P-51, and conventional wisdom says piston engine fighters can't touch them, but the Red Tails don't chase. They hold formation between the bombers and the jets, forcing the Me-262s into awkward firing angles. In the chaos, 3 jets go down. Captain Roscoe Brown gets one, Lieutenant Earl Lane another, and Second Lieutenant Charles Brantley the third. It's the only mission in which the 332nd downs 3 German jets in one day, and every bomber returns home intact. The report spreads across every base in Italy. Crews who weren't there hear from those who were, and the story grows. Some versions claim 6 jets destroyed. Others say the Red Tails pursued them to their base. The truth doesn't need embellishment. In the final months of the war, against Germany's most advanced aircraft and best pilots, the 332nd guarded their bombers flawlessly and shot down 3 jets while never breaking formation. The myth and reality fuse into one. If the Red Tails are flying cover, you're coming home. By April 1945, the zero-loss record isn't just data. It's faith, legend, and tactical fact intertwined. Allied bomber crews relax the moment they spot Red Tails weaving in formation. German pilots hesitate before diving into those same formations, knowing the price. And at 25,000 feet in freezing cockpits, black pilots who've spent their lives being told they're inferior, approving mission after mission. That excellence has nothing to do with color. It's about precision, discipline, and endurance. The war ends in May 1945. The 332nd returns home, carrying a record no one can refute, and few want to acknowledge. They've flown 578 combat missions, destroyed 112 enemy aircraft in the air, another 150 on the ground, sunk a destroyer with machine gun fire, and earned 96 Distinguished Flying Crosses. Their bomber loss rate, the lowest in the entire 15th Air Force, is statistical proof of mastery. But America in 1945 isn't ready to celebrate them. There are no ticker tape parades, no national radio broadcasts. The mainstream white press barely mentions them, while hailing other aces as heroes. Colonel Benjamin O. Davis, Jr. receives the Silver Star, yet his promotion to Brigadier General doesn't come until 1954, 9 years later, while white officers with far less distinguished records earn stars within months. The Tuskegee Airmen return to an America still segregated, where they can't eat beside the bomber crews they saved, can't drink from the same fountains, can't live in the same neighborhoods. But their record becomes ammunition in a new war, the fight for civil rights. It's data that can't be argued away. When segregationists claim black soldiers underperformed in World War II, activists point to the 332nd. When the military resists integration, reformers cite the fact that its most effective escort group was entirely black. In July 1948, President Truman signs Executive Order 9981, officially desegregating the U.S. Armed Forces, and the performance of the Tuskegee Airmen stands as part of the irrefutable evidence that made that decision inevitable, indefensible. You can't claim an entire race is inferior when they've demonstrated superior results under the most unforgiving conditions, measured not by opinion, but by hard data, combat effectiveness, and mission success. The tactical doctrine the Tuskegee Airmen pioneered becomes the blueprint for future generations. The stay with the bombers strategy that Colonel Davis enforced in 1944 becomes official Air Force policy within a decade. Standard procedure during the Korean War, modern escort doctrine centers on protecting the mission, not chasing kills, precisely what the 322nd proved in the skies over Europe. Even the F-15 Eagle's design requirements in the 1970s, its extended range and escort endurance, trace their lineage to lessons learned from World War II bomber protection. The tactics outlasted the prejudice that tried to ground them. The Hollywood retelling would take years to arrive. HBO's The Tuskegee Airmen in 1995 introduces millions of viewers to the story for the first time. The 2012 film Red Tails brings it to theaters, dramatized and simplified, but undeniably powerful. Yes, they condense events, merge characters, and amplify dogfights, but they accomplish something crucial. They force America to acknowledge the heroes it had erased. Schools that never mentioned black aviators begin adding them to history lessons. Veterans organizations that once ignored them start inviting the airmen to speak. The surviving pilots become living conduits to a history nearly buried. Lieutenant Colonel George Hardy, who flew 21 missions with the 332nd, continues appearing at air shows well into his 90s, reminding audiences that he fought two wars, one against the Nazis, the other against racism in his own ranks. Brigadier General Charles McGee, who logged 409 combat missions across 3 wars, becomes the embodiment of the Tuskegee legacy, teaching young pilots about discipline and duty. They never claimed perfection. They claimed perseverance. Faced with impossible expectations, they succeeded not through privilege or luck, but through absolute discipline, turning an imposed disadvantage into mastery. Their ultimate vindication comes in 2007, when President George W. Bush awards the Tuskegee Airmen the Congressional Gold Medal. Around 300 survivors attend the ceremony. Elderly men in red blazers, some in wheelchairs, some breathing through oxygen tubes, but all standing taller than ever. In his address, Bush acknowledges what official history ignored for 6 decades, that these men were held to a double standard, rose above it, and transformed the U.S. military forever. The medal can't erase the years of exclusion or replace the opportunities stolen, but it finally makes their contribution undeniable. Recorded in the nation's conscience as fact, today their lessons endure in every cockpit. The U.S. Air Force trains its pilots using case studies of the 332nd's escort doctrine. Squadron Officer School and the Fighter Weapons School both teach the same virtues Colonel Davis drilled into his men: precision, discipline, teamwork, and mission focus. When modern pilots discuss close air support or defensive escort tactics, they're echoing methods refined under fire by men once told they weren't fit to serve. The Tuskegee Airmen didn't just prove they could fly, they redefined excellence. They rewrote doctrine through intellect and endurance, flying closer, steadier, and truer than the regulations demanded. And in doing so, they didn't just protect bombers, they changed what it meant to be the best.